Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all my Snake Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post-Battles of Legend Monstrous Revenge. We got a bunch of new Snake cards in the latest Yu-Gi-Oh! Booster set. I gotta be honest, when I first saw them, I thought they were cards that Viper used in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX series, but they were actually not used by Viper. They were used by a character in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX manga, and they don't actually have anything to do with Viper's Venom cards. They play with more like a generic reptile lineup. So for going for the additional cards to use with the Snake deck, I decided to go with the Reptilian lineup, just working easy with some of the cards from Burst of Destiny for an easy special summon engine to use and set up all the different reptile snake monsters that we run in the deck, along with the boss monster that she also used in the manga, which was Evil Dragon Ananta. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the new Snake cards, running 3 copies of the new Black Mamba. If you control a reptile monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Black Mamba once per turn this way. If it's normal or special summon, you can target one monster your opponent controls, send one reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard. If you do, change the targeted attack's battle position. You can only use this effect of Black Mamba once per turn. So while it also has the reptile setup for your Evil Dragon Ananta, getting more and more reptiles in the graveyard, it's just an easy special summon if you have another reptile monster on the field, meaning it works well with the majority of the other cards we run since they are all reptile monsters, giving you just options for the extra deck for the easy special summon and then having a send effect on top of it. We're also running 3 copies of the new Uroboros, the Avatar of Malice. Monsters your opponent control lose 300 attack and defense. You can only use each of the following effects of Uroboros, the Avatar of Malice, once per turn. You can tribute 1 reptile monster, special summon this card from your hand, and you can tribute 1 monster. All monsters your opponent currently control lose attack and defense equal to the original attack of the tributed monster until the end of this turn. So it works well with the Reptilian lineup, making your opponent's monsters become 0 attack and defense for the tribute play. So the stronger the reptile, the more you can lower their attack down, on top of Uroboros' also additional 300 attack and defense minus that it can do. We're also running 3 copies of the new card called Lamia. This is another good card for the setup for our next go-to card. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 level 8 reptile monster from your deck to your hand. If this card is banished, you can target 1 reptile you control. It cannot be destroyed by card effects until the end of this next turn. You can only use each effect of Lamia once per turn. So on top of Lamia being able to search out your Evil Dragon Ananta, it is also in the deck to make the Ananta that you summon be unable to be destroyed by card effects until the end of next turn. So you have a bigger boss monster that you can invest in and the additional protection that your Lamia can provide. So whether you banish it off of Evil Dragon Ananta or any other additional banished play, very useful for that play to rely on, giving you that boss monster on the field, which we are also running the 2 copies of, which is Evil Dragon Ananta. It cannot be normal summon or set. It must be special summoned by banishing all reptile monsters you control and in your graveyard. This card's attack and defense become the number of monsters banished for it special summon times 600, and once per turn during your end phase you can target 1 card on the field and destroy that target. So the stronger is based on how many reptile monsters you banish from your field or graveyard. If you banish Lamia off of this card, then you have the additional protection effect on top of its summon as well. So if your opponent were to try and destroy it with a card effect, you have a monster that is unable to do so, and also one that is beefed up with all the cards that you banished for it. Now for the Reptilian lineup, I'm running 3 copies of Reptilian Nyami. During the main phase, if you have a reptile monster in your graveyard, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard and target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and change its attack to 0. If your opponent controls a monster with 0 attack, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. You can only use 1 Reptilian Nyami effect per turn, only once that turn. So you do have other ways to lower attack on the field, whether it be your Uroboros, the Avatar of Malice, and its own tribute effect. And then you can summon your Nyami back onto the field, just giving you more and more of your reptile resources on the field for you to use. our tuner in the deck, also giving us some options for synchro plays, is our Reptilian Kotal. If you control a dark reptile monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then if your opponent controls any monsters with 0 attack, you can special summon up to an equal number of reptilian monsters from your hand. You can only use this effect of Reptilian Kotal once per turn. And if this card you control will be used as synchro material for a reptile monster, you can treat it as a non-tuner. So you have the option for a non-tuner play, but most of the time you're just going to keep it as the tuner to use with your non-tuner monsters you have on the field. And the varying level that we have with all of our snake monsters means you can adjust the play you also want to go for with this card. Our other tuner is our Reptilian Lamia, which is also the last monster we run in the main deck. If this card is in your hand and all monsters you control are face-up reptile, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, change its attack to 0, and special summon this card, then take damage equal to that monster's original attack. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can target up to 2 face-up monsters on the field and change their attack to 0. So you have repeated, attack change to 0 plays with your Lamia, and then just the additional option to potentially use it with Kotal as a non-tuner to go for a reptile summon if need be. But you also, like I said, have the other reptile monsters to use as well, including the Evil Dragon Ananta, which can be special summoned out, and then you can summon out your Lamia and have a level 10 synchro play if need be also with these cards. And then moving on to the spells, 3 copies of Reptilian Coil. You can target one monster you control with 0 attack and 1 dark reptile in your graveyard. Destroy that monster on the field. And if you do, special summon that other monster from your graveyard. So just being a dark reptile, you could also go for your other monsters. So if you summon out your Lamia off of the special summon, you have your other level 8 search. That's why we're also running multiple copies of the Evil Dragon Ananta to be able to use Lamia multiple times. And then we also have the Urabona special summon for the attack, losing power, or just the Black Mamba for the search and send to the graveyard, depending on what you may want to summon back off of this card. And also 2 copies of Ogdoadic Origin. If a face-up reptile you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can target one card and your opponent controls, send it to the graveyard. If this card in the field zone is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard equal to the number of your opponent's deck to the graveyard, equal to the number of reptile monsters with different card names in your graveyard. So it's more of a mill effect, but still more of an option to just send a card in your opponent's field to the graveyard by just having a face-up reptile you control destroyed by battle of an opponent's card. So you have more of the special summon setup for yourself with Reptilian Coil, and then being able to take care of your opponent's cards with your Ogdoadic Origin. And then also the 1 copy of Terraforming to search out whichever field spell you may need for the specific situation. Now for the next lineup of spells, I was trying to determine the ratio I wanted to go for Snake Rain, Reptilian Ramifications, and then also Foolish Burial. With Reptilian Ramifications, you have a search for a Reptilian monster, a spell and trap card search by sending 1 card from your hand to the graveyard and then activating 2 of these effects, or changing the attack of a monster your opponent controls to 0. Snake Rain, you discard 1 card to send 4 reptiles from your deck to the graveyard as well. And then Foolish Burial just sends 1 card. Potentially I would take out the Foolish Burial and then add an additional copy of another card. You could run the full playset of Snake Rain. You could run 3 Reptilian Ramifications here. You can choose the, order in combo which you feel to be best for this one spot here in the deck. I was just trying to mix around and see what I found to be best. If anything, I may run the 2 Snake Rain and then the 1 additional Reptilian Ramification, or increase my number of Ramification by dropping down the number of Allure of Darkness that I also run. All the main deck monsters that we run are dark attributes, so you have draw power thanks to this spell, and also not being a once per turn, multiple if you keep drawing into them also. And then you gain the additional protection effect off of your Lamia if you have a monster on the field, if you were to banish this card as the cost for Allure of Darkness. And then also for the rest of the spells, 1 copy of Monster Reborn and 1 copy of Gold Sarcophagus. I thought about running Change of Heart instead of the Monster Reborn, so if you wanted to move that spot out to take a 0 attack by monster that your opponent may have that can work with your other cards like Reptilian Recoil, being able to target that monster with 0 attack and then destroy it to get another special summon of your own monster. And for the trap cards, running 3 copies of Viper's Grudge. This is the new trap for the deck. When a non-reptile monster you control cannot attack. Also, you cannot activate their effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Viper's Grudge once per turn. If a face-up reptile monster you control is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower reptile monster from your deck. And then if this card is destroyed in the spell and trap card zone, you can return all your banished reptile monsters to your graveyard. So what's great about this card is with the banish play of your Evil Dragon Ananta, you really invest in one one of the reptile boss monsters, but if you use Viper's Grudge to return all those cards, when you get your second copy, you have it at full power, if not even stronger, since more reptile monsters could have been sent to the graveyard after the first one, using Viper's Grudge to also continue the special summon for the good majority of your other snake monsters onto the field when another one is destroyed. I also run the 2 copies of Yugioh Hollow for this card during the main phase, being able to tribute a reptile monster, then target a monster your opponent controls and special summon it to your field, but send it to the graveyard. It's the opponent's graveyard, sorry about that, at the end of the phase, and you can only use this effect of Yugioh Hollow once per turn, and then sending all non-face-up reptile monsters you control to the graveyard when this card is sent from the spell and trap cards into the graveyard, but it takes it so you can also activate this in response to your opponent targeting a monster in their graveyard by then being able to tribute a reptile monster you control and then just grabbing that monster off of your opponent, with the last of the traps that we run being 2 copies of Damage Equals Reptile. So if your opponent hits you for damage with your snake monsters, you can then just special summon a stronger snake monster from your deck or a reptile monster in general, and a good number of them have low attack like the reptilian cards, or even just the cards like Black Mamba and also our Lamia, being able to summon them out if we take at least the 1300 points of damage from our opponent's attack into our other reptile monster that was either in attack position or if we took piercing battle damage. And then for the extra deck, for the Link monsters, I run 1 copy of Reptilian Echidna and also 2 copies of Alien Shock Trooper. The send effect of a discard monster to place 8 counters equally to the original level of all face-up monsters on the field, distributed as you wish, means that we can place the monsters of the original level of that face-up monster onto our opponent's monsters, and then when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard by a card effect or by battle, you can then special summon reptiles. So if you put those counters on monsters your opponent may want to get rid of, you can then special summon reptiles back onto the field. It's the only really use of A counters we have in the deck, but it still does pop up. And also the 1 copy of IP Masquerena, Nightmare Phoenix, Dark the Dark Charmer, and the Nightmare Unicorn for more of a generic lineup when we can use them. I know a lot of the cards restrict us for reptile play setup, but still useful to have a generic engine, with our synchro monsters being the 1 copy of Reptilian Melusine, the 1 Vulcan the Divine, the 1 Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, Borreload Savage Dragon, and the 1 Chaos Angel for the dark attribute plays with it. And for the Xyz monsters, the 1 King of the Feral Imps for the Reptile Search, just using 2 level 4 monsters, the 1 Baguska, and the 1 Zeus to finish off the extra deck with the Xyz monsters. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, as I said before, you have a very easy special summon setup with cards like your Reptilian Kotal and also your Black Mamba, both being able to be easily special summoned on the field just by controlling a reptile monster. So if we open up cards like our Lamia, summoning it onto the field, we'll gain the search off of our Lamia as well, being able to add our Evil Dragon Ananta to our hand off of this play. And then from there, we can have, if we either of these monsters, or potentially the Black Mamba for the special summon onto the field, you can then activate the effect of your Black Mamba to send a card being 1 monster when it's normal special summon, target a monster your opponent controls. So you have to have the monster your opponent controls targeted. You send a reptile monster from your deck to the graveyard and change the targeted monster's battle position. So it can't be a Link monster, obviously, but you can send then the other monster to your graveyard for this play. And then you could just send the additional reptile monster if you have this, or it can even be 1 of your reptilian monsters like your Niami, because then you have the additional play with your Niami if the opponent's attack points, if your opponent controls one with 0 attack, to special summon this card from your graveyard. So once that's set up in the graveyard, you can go for the Link 2 play with your Black Mamba and your Lamia to then summon out onto the field your Reptilian Echidna. And then when this card is Link summoned, targeting a face-up monster your opponent controls, changing its attack to 0. So once it's changed to 0, you have the special summon play with a 0 attack to special summon this card from your graveyard, so you can summon Niami back onto the field as well. And then if your opponent controls that monster, you can add a reptile monster with different names from your deck up to your hand, up to the number of monsters your opponent controls with 0 attack. So you can use your Echidna for that additional search, and then you cannot special summon from the X deck for the rest of this turn, except for reptile monsters, but it's really not a problem there, because then you'll use the additional search for your Reptilian Echidna to add 1 additional monster. So this time you can add your Black Mamba, because with this play you just have a reptile monster with different names from the ones in your graveyard. So you have the Black Mamba and the Lamia. Then you can use your bonus for the tribute of a reptile monster. So you can tribute your Niami, summoning out your bonus to the field as well. And what you're doing here is you're also just setting up more and more of the reptile monsters in the graveyard. So then from here, you can go for one more additional link play. And remember, you're locked into reptiles for this play. So you'll go into your alien shock trooper M-frame. You have the one other Ananta that I mentioned in the hand, but you can use potentially the M-frame to then discard a monster, setting up the A counters on your opponent's field as well. And then from there, you have plenty of reptile monsters in your graveyard and your field for you to banish to then summon out onto the field your Evil Dragon Ananta, with all the ones we banished being 7 in total, putting your Evil Dragon Ananta up to 4,200 attack. And since you banished the Lamia, it also is unaffected by your opponent's card effects until the end of the next turn. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. As I, built this deck more and more, I started loving just how well it worked with the Reptilian engine and the new snake reptile monsters we got from the Monstrous Revenge booster set. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.